Hey all, Michael Lunsford here, Citizens for New Louisiana, and I've been getting your phone calls and emails and text messages and all of those things, all the ways you communicate, asking me what we think of the constitutional amendments. And look, the best place, I have to tell you, if you want to do your own research and find out, like really deep dive on this, is PAR. PARLouisiana.org. It's Public Affairs Research Council. This is the guide for the 2021 constitutional amendments, and it's a great resource because it covers it kind of from both sides. It misses a few of the little details that I get interested in sometimes. But let's jump over to, I think it's the third page here, and it lists all of the amendments. So you can print out page 3 and you can check off, so you can go to the voting booth with your little guide on how you plan to vote and check off yes or no how you plan to do that. So short version of this is I'm not a big fan of any of these 4 constitutional amendments. I don't like them at all. And let's go through one at a time. We'll see what the issues are. Number 1 is the Sales and Use Tax Commission. Now what this does is it creates a brand new bureaucracy in the state of Louisiana. I'm not a fan of that. It grows government. And what they're going to do is they're going to leave all of the current collection agencies in place. And depending on where you are, it could be a school board, a sheriff, the municipality to collects the sales tax for your parish. So all of those people that are employed there will still be employed there if this passes. In fact, this doesn't shrink government at all. I know the word streamline is in the language, the ballot language, but it doesn't streamline anything. It just makes it more robust. Now, from the perspective of business owners that have to pay these taxes, perhaps it is somewhat streamlined, but there are other ways to do this. In fact, the private sector has jumped out a long time ago and has created solutions to address just these problems. And personally, I think if the private sector has to create a solution to a problem the government created, then maybe the government shouldn't be creating this problem. Another thing I like to say is if the government is the solution to a problem the government created, we got bigger problems that we have to contend with, and that is, obviously, government has gotten way too big. So let's read, and this is the only amendment I'm going to read from the PAR guide on, but just to give you a little bit of the information that I think is interesting. Under proposed change, this is on the first page of Amendment 1, last paragraph, it says, if passed by voters on November the 13th, the amendment would still need implementing statutory legislation to become effective and to further outline the new system. So what that means is they can write laws to change the rules in the legislature. It would allow the legislature more power to do that, and the rules have not been written yet. It should be a big red flag for anybody. This is nuts. Why in the world would you pass a constitutional amendment not knowing what they're going to do with the rules at the next session or the session after that? It just doesn't make sense to me. All right, so another section, it's actually on page 3. What would not change, and this is pretty huge. Louisiana has the highest combined rate of state and local sales taxes in the nation. The highest. This does not reduce that. What this does is it allows for a new bureaucracy to hire new employees to actually cost more money, but they're not reducing the amount of money you're having to pay in. See how that works? They're growing government. Not good. The new commission, and here, this is key. Measured by the gross revenue gathered, the commission would be the largest tax collection agency in the entire state of Louisiana. So let me ask you this. John Bel Edwards has been running the state now for a number of years. This last cycle that he's been running things, I think he's been a little tyrannical. I think he has kind of gotten overboard on what he's trying to get done through executive fiat. I think that's a bad deal for everybody in the state of Louisiana. And so why in the world would we give the state more authority and more power to do or to continue doing these types of things, to torment folks in the state? I think it's a bad idea. I think that if we leave it the way it is, we're probably, at least we have federalism. We have distributed powers. When you consolidate to the state, that makes me nervous. So that's one. I mean, I've given you a lot of reasons why I think this is a terrible idea. The reason why it might be a good idea is it does potentially streamline things for businesses, but you still have to pay. So Anyway, moving on. And by the way, I believe that the guys at the Louisiana Economic Development Authority could fix this within their own purview. In fact, there's already mechanisms in place. So I wonder why in the world the state, their solution to the problem is give the state more power. That blows my mind. All right, number 2. This is the income tax reform, they call it, and they call it revenue neutral. But the question becomes, is it revenue neutral for whom? And that would be the state of Louisiana. So they're going to be moving money around internally. And look, basically what would happen is you have certain business expenses, like business, for example. And your personal income as well, you have the ability to write off certain expenses. What this legislation effectively does is it reduces the top rate from 6% to 4.75, 4.25 in the legislation, the companion legislation they've written for this, perhaps to attract you, but it still, they could raise it, the legislature could raise it to 4.75 at any time they wanted to. So, but what it does is it disallows you from writing off federal income tax as tax deductible. So all the money you pay to the federal government, you don't get to keep that. That doesn't stay in your checking account. You don't get to use that money. You got to send it off. In fact, generally you have to send it off quarterly. So the ability to not call that a business expense is kind of problematic for me. I think there would be a better way to do this. Why don't we just reduce taxes overall? But they don't want to do that. My question for the folks that wrote this was the tax brackets. They have 3 listed here. How would this individually affect each tax bracket? Show me the dollar amount of income, how much they've written off traditionally to the federal government, and how much would they write to the state government. They have not provided those documents. I've asked for them over and over again. I've been told they're coming, and they're not here. Well, the election is around the corner. We still have no idea how this works. I've talked to a few CPAs who are very wary of this. They think this is problematic as well because they don't know how much their clients are going to end up having to pay extra because of the reorganization. So a lot of questions, more questions than answers. I'm not a fan of this one either. Does it have the potential to reduce income tax? It does. Is it likely to pass? When you use the word tax reduction in ballot language, it's probably likely to pass. But, Louisiana is we're very taxed. And I know when people see tax anywhere, they are immediately the antenna go up. So we'll see how it goes. Number 3. This is taxing authority for new levy districts. Now this one, to me, it's a mystery. Why in the world would a levy district not just raise its own tax? In fact, if there's not a levy district in your part of the state, this doesn't affect you. But it's on your ballot. What in the world is that about? Nobody knows. So I think it's kind of crazy. I think it's more than we need. It doesn't need to be yet another thing added to the state constitution. If you think you want more money, you want $5 million for your levy district, have the levy district bring a tax. It's not difficult. Most of them go through the parish government who are more than willing to put it up. Hey, let the voters decide. That's the mantra of all these elected officials. So, let the voters decide on your levy district. Why is someone in, Monroe voting on a levy district for our Berea parish? It doesn't make any sense. So I think this is terrible. In fact, it says tax in it. It's probably not going to pass anyway. Moving on, number 4, tapping more dedicated money to fix a deficit. Now this one's pretty interesting. I really don't know how I feel about this. Effectively what it does is if there is a fiscal emergency in the state of Louisiana, currently they can take 5% of dedicated revenue in the various, we have so many sacred cows in Louisiana, constitutionally protected funds that we shall not touch. Well, you can touch 5% of it in a fiscal crisis. What this does is it allows them to touch 10% of it in a fiscal crisis. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of dedicated money. I get it. I get why it's important because we don't trust government, so we want to dedicate money. But the problem we run into is a lot of this dedicated money is our parents' priority. It's our grandparents' priority. Is it our priority? Maybe not, but it's locked into the state constitution. And that's been what's problematic for me is you can only take most of the money that you need to operate from certain funds. This would allow it to increase to 10%, which I think, we're eliminating some sacred cows. We're allowing some money to come in from dedicated funds. I'm kind of okay with that. However, and here's the flip side of that, it also encourages them to be less fiscally responsible. And that's because if they know they can get double the money out of dedicated funds than they could before, then why try to save? Let's just spend, and if we happen to have a fiscal crisis, we can go steal money from places. So, I don't know, I'm 50-50 on it. But hey, you know what? Whatever you think. In fact, this one probably, I mean, just the chatter I'm hearing out there, this one's not, nobody likes it anyway. So, I don't think any of these are any good, but, you know, number 2 might pass. We'll see how it goes. Vote your conscience. And look, here is the book again. Here's the guide. It's on parlouisiana.org. It is the PAR guide to the 2021 constitutional amendments. It's at the Public Affairs Research Council, parlouisiana.org. Go check it out. Download the guide. Fill in the page 3 with how you plan to vote. Bring it with you as your cheat sheet to the polls. And you know, that's all I have for you today. So thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We'll catch you next time with some great state or local information. Until then, catch you later.